Welcome to another edition of Hollywood Hoops Laid Back Reaction. I'm Josh Martin of Lonzo Wire. He's Eric Pincus of Basketball Insiders and Bleacher Report. Eric, I know the season is over for the Lakers, or ostensibly. They've got 4 more games left before their regular season is wrapped up. They're not going to be in the playoffs, but they certainly seem to be playing like a team that wants to make something of the end of this campaign here. You know, they struggled a little bit in Utah, ended up losing that game, but made it close in the end. They had a close one against Sacramento, both those games without Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball. And then, of course, they play the Spurs. The Spurs play on a back-to-back. The Lakers also play on a back-to-back Wednesday night. And the Lakers, without Lonzo, without Ingram, and obviously without Isaiah Thomas, who's coming off hip surgery, managed to take down the San Antonio Spurs in overtime, 122-112. That was quite an exciting game. What did you see there that would kind of gives you hope for the future for the Lakers?
Well, it was a big win. The Spurs were not trying to sit, rest, right? Tank's not the right word, but in October, whenever we did our prediction, Josh, I had the Lakers beating the Spurs on this game because we figured second night of a back-to-back, there's no way that both Powell and LaMarcus were going to play. I don't think we thought Kawhi would be healthy, but we figured they'd be resting stars and that the Lakers would get one of those padded wins, even though they were on a back-to-back. And that's not the case at all. The Spurs are really fighting to try to hold on to some sort of home court advantage. They lost against the Clippers the day before on Saturday. Not Saturday. I don't know what day it is today. Monday? Tuesday?
Yeah,
Wednesday. Tuesday. They played Tuesday and they lost Clippers. Wednesday. We're recording on Thursday. Yeah, I've been to a lot of games lately, so it kind of skews I don't know what day it is. So
all good.
But the reality is that they beat a good Spurs team, and it wasn't a Spurs team that was playing like Bryn Forbes and Davis Bertans, which is what we predicted, guys who are good players and they can even beat you. But how about Zubac, Ivica Zubac? That's the matchup that Luke Walton went against LaMarcus Aldridge, and he did a really credible job. He had probably his best game as a Laker, even though he didn't score like 20 points. He's had bigger scoring games, but he had assists, he had rebounds, points, and most importantly, defense. And I think that's an area where Zubac has been lacking the most, is that, you know, he's a very young kid. Although he's 7 feet tall, he's still a young guy. Wow. Really impressive game. And of course, Kyle Kuzma going absolutely insane. And Josh, I'll give you one more point. I loved how positive the Lakers were around Josh Hart when he just missed that game-winning layup. They all came over him and just like Randall and Lopez, and we're giving him a lot of love and jeers, and it was very positive. And I was like, this doesn't look like a team that's going to go into overtime like feeling like, oh, we blew it. They came right out, and Kuzma just like lit it up, and that was that.
Yeah, it was a really nice showing there, the way they rallied, and of course they were giving Josh some good-natured guff after the game for missing that shot, and Channing Frye got plenty of that for that missed dunk that he had in the fourth quarter. But you know, you're really seeing something with this team that they're able to compete even without arguably their 2 best players in Lonzo and Brandon Ingram. They really did a nice job of banding together. And look, as a result of this win, the Lakers get their first season sweep of the San Antonio Spurs since 1997-1998. That was Tim Duncan's rookie season. It's pretty incredible to me that this team, you know, still, you know, going into the offseason with its 5th straight quote-unquote trip to the lottery, even though they don't have their own pick, that they were able to pull this off against one of the NBA's great dynasties. Obviously, it's not the Spurs of old. They've had a lot of issues this year. But, I mean, Eric, what does it sort of say to you now about potentially the turning tide or the shifting balance of power in the Western Conference when you have the Lakers sweeping the Spurs in a season series here? Does it tell you anything larger, or do you just say, hey, well, they had 3 good games and that's that?
Well, I think we see that there are 2 elite teams right now, and in the past there might have been 4 or 5 that could be argued are at least in that conversation. Right now we've got the Blazers, who I feel are the best of the rest, and I like the Blazers. But after that, like, there's not a huge difference between the Utah Jazz, who are the 4th seed right now, at least on Thursday, right? We established it was Thursday,
Yes.
at 45 wins, where you have the Clippers all the way down at 10 at 42 wins. That's a 3-win difference. That's almost nothing, really. And so it's impressive to see how there's a balance there, there's depth, and the West has gotten better. In the past, last year, the West wasn't as good, maybe even the last 2 years. But now we're getting to a point where a team might have 46 wins, 45 wins, 48 wins, and not make the playoffs. I don't think the Clippers or the Nuggets will get up to 48, but in that range anyway. So interesting to see. And I will say one last thing to what you said, Josh. Maybe their two best players, Lonzo and Ingram, but you can argue that Julius Randle's their best player. And some might even argue that Kyle Kuzma is their best player. And some might argue that Tyler Ennis had a good game the other night, I got to say.
Yeah.
He did a lot right and helped them win that game. So I know he's gotten a lot of flack from the fans, but he's a great guy. And he hasn't delivered as much on the court as anything the team and he would like. But he had a good game the other day. So who is the best Laker is an interesting question. That's a good issue to have in that it's not a star-driven team. They have a lot of depth, young depth. They're coming up, and I think it's an exciting thing for the fans. If this core stays together, if they can add in a star or two, it could be a very different thing.
Yeah, it is a good sign that it's hard to pick out who's the best because really it changes from night to night. We'll see who that is on Friday against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Lonzo and Ingram are both expected to miss that game as well, so you'll probably see a very similar set of rotations for the Lakers and hopefully similar efforts from Kuzma and Randle and maybe even Channing Frye, who knows. But for now, thank you all again for joining us for this edition of Hollywood Hoops. He's Eric Pincus of Basketball Insiders and Bleacher Report. I'm Josh Martin of Lonzo Wire, and please be sure to check out our podcast, Hollywood Hoops, wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, Megaphone, clnsmedia.com, or almightyballer.com, or every Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time on Nothing But Net Radio on Dash Radio. Thank you all again, and we'll be back with you again soon with another edition of Hollywood Hoops Laid Back Reaction.